She smelled like my wife, but her husband wasn't ma. I noticed the scent before I noticed the man. It clung to our hallway long after the elevator had blinked shut, that expensive hush of citrus and amber my wife never wore. Murran liked clean things, fresh linen, green tea, soap that announced itself as soap. This fragrance was velvet and velvet's shadow. I stood in the doorway with my keys in my hand and let the air tell me something I didn't want to translate. Inside, the apartment glowed like it had been tuttied by someone who wanted to be thanked. Two glasses waited on the counter with a wet shine, a lemon cut into a perfect hexagon. Murran stepped out of the bedroom with a smile she used for presentations and relatives. The blue dress was new. It had that just steamed slickness, the sort of fabric that made light choose where to rest. "How was the late session?" she asked, drawing me into a kiss that skimmed the surface of us. "I'm a photographer. Long hours, bad coffee, good lies we tell ourselves about why we miss dinners." The newsroom had been chaos all week, and this night was supposed to be the quiet after. "Productive," I said, and let my nose get in the way of my mouth. The scent on her collarbone was the one in the hallway. It wasn't mine. She moved past me to pour water, her back bare and delicate where the dress made its argument. "We might get that campaign for the hotel," she said. "If we do, I'll need you to shoot the rooftop." "Who's we?" I asked, hearing the pettiness and deciding not to care. "Brand team," she said too fast. "You know Clara Joel, some agency people." "And a signature scent," I said because I couldn't help myself. "Not yours." She touched her throat, not quite touching her skin. "The agency sent samples," she said lightly. "We're testing what makes people feel premium." "Premium," I repeated, and pretended the word wasn't sand in my teeth. We ate late, knees brushing, talk looping around work because work is the only place you can plan the ending of a sentence. She was charming and I was careful. Both are skills, and both are weapons if used wrong. In bed, she tucked her feet between my calves and hummed the way she does when she's too tired to ask for anything more. I pressed my face into her hair and tried to remember if it had always smelled like a place that charged a cover. 2 nights later, the scent returned, stronger, layered now with something like cedar and heat. I saw him then, just a flash in the elevator mirror before the doors cut me out. Suit cut close, silver stubble that someone had probably complimented at least twice that day, and shoulders that believed in themselves. He didn't look at me. Men like that rarely do unless they're negotiating or flirting, and he had the confidence of someone who assumes both will go well. He got off on 8. We live on 8. I told myself 100 stories in the 10 steps from elevator to our door, none of them useful, all of them practiced. Inside, Myron was barefoot at the kitchen island with a cutting board full of limes and a playlist that made the room move in small ways. She smelled like him. It made my chest feel tight and stupid. "Client dropped off some mood boards," she said when I asked about the elevator. "He's intense." "Does intense have a name?" I said, and opened the fridge with more force than the fridge deserved. "Luck," she said. "He owns that rooftop bar at the Vesper and half of something else. He thinks in big circles. Don't do that face. We need his circles." She set a lime quarter in my palm and closed my fist over it. "You don't have to like him. You just have to take his money's picture." You can be married to someone and still not have the muscle to lift a better conversation. I squeezed the lime until it surrendered and decided not to say I'd seen the way his reflection tilted toward her. I decided not to say a lot of things. The affair, the almost, the maybe, the thing, I didn't learn it from a text or a rumor. I learned it with my camera. We booked a test shoot on Luck's rooftop to build the deck. The city did its expensive blue trick. The wind acted like it knew it was being filmed. Murran stood near the glass and talked with her hands. Luck stood closer than the conversation required. When I lifted the lens, they both looked at me like they were already on a page together. He kept touching her lower back to move her, polite, proprietary, practiced. She laughed less with him than she did with me, which somehow made it worse. I told myself there are touches that are choreography and touches that are story. My lens doesn't differentiate without direction. Halfway through the shoot, a gust took Murran's scarf and it cartwheeled toward the edge. I caught it, ridiculous rom-com reflexes, and breathed in that same amber citrus thing. It made my mouth water and my jaw set. I tied the scarf around my wrist like a dare and shot through golden hour with a steadiness I didn't feel. After, Luck clapped my shoulder like he'd tipped me generously. "You have a good eye," he said, and held my gaze for a beat too long, like he was checking if I knew where my eyes had been. "We all see what we can handle," I said. He smiled the way men smile, when they've already moved on to the next yes. That's when I met Iris. She ran the scent lab attached to the agency, a quiet alley of a room where thin glass strips rested like pale bookmarks, and bottles wore white labels with soft names. I only walked in because I was following the scarf's ghost. I stayed because Iris looked up with a small smirk and said, "You're either lost or looking for something abstract." "Which one gets me a lesson?" I asked. "The second," she said, and patted the stool beside her station. "Sit. Tell me what this is." She lifted a strip to my nose and watched my mouth like it would spell something. The smell was warm, slightly bitter, intimate without being loud. "Orange peel, leather, the inside of a piano," I said, surprising myself. Iris grinned. She had that thin strength some women carry like a secret blade, dark hair cut blunt, eyes with a thinking kink at the edges. "Blood orange, suede, old wood varnish," she said. "You're close, photographer." She held up another strip. "Now this one." I smelled the hallway, the elevator, the scarf. I didn't say my wife. "Amber musk, a good lie," I said. She lifted one shoulder, impressed and unconvinced. "Umbruxun, kashmkron, and a drop of vanilla because everyone pretends not to want dessert." She set the strip down like it might stand up again. "That's Lux. He asked me to build it. He's the kind of man who wants the room to smell like he was already there." "Did you give him what he wanted?" I asked. "I gave him the version that won't get me sued," she said. "And you, why do you look like someone told you a secret in a language you almost speak?" "Because that's exactly what happened," I said. She slid another strip under my nose without warning. It smelled like green tea and less than that. "This one," she said, "is the antidote. When a room has fingerprints, you open a window." We fell into the habit of conversations that lasted longer than they should. She came to a couple shoots, shading the air behind Murran with molecules I couldn't name but could drink. I brought her coffees and asked why memory attaches to scent like a magnet. She showed me the inside of it, how certain notes sit close to skin, how citrus makes an entrance and then leaves before it's asked to help clean up. One evening, when the office had emptied and the city was dimming into itself, she pressed a bottle into my hand. "No label. For your wife," she said. "Or for you, when you want to remember to breathe before you speak." "What is it?" I asked. "Honesty with a little smoke," she said. "If she hates it, you can say it was a gift from an anonymous admirer and we'll both know the truth anyway." I didn't give it to Murran. That would have turned Iris into a character in a different story. Instead, I put the bottle on my desk and let it judge me while I edited photos of my wife and a man who believed in mirrors. When it happened, if you can call a door opening and closing a happening, it happened quickly. I came home early, a miracle of cancellations, and the apartment held that scent like an argument already won. Their voices were just the volume below laughter, the one that finds you either before or after. I stood in the hallway listening to my future get shorter. A part of me had planned this. The walking in, the supervision of shock, the phrases we think live inside us like weapons. Explain this. How could you? Get out. The reality was an unsteady hand on a doorknob and a mouth too dry to call my own name. The bedroom wasn't a mess. It was tidy in the way intimacy sometimes is, orderly on the surface, wreckage discreet. Myron stood at the foot of the bed with her arms crossed. Luck was at the window with his hands in his pockets, the picture of a man who never apologizes but knows the shape of the word. They were fully dressed, another argument I didn't want to have with my eyes. Myron saw me first and went pale in a way that made me love her and hate myself. "Jackson," she said, and my name broke in the middle. Luck didn't turn. "You have a key," he observed, as if the apartment were a boutique he was considering acquiring. "Put your cologne back in its briefcase and leave," I said. It came out low and useful. He did turn then, and his mouth did a thing meant for other rooms. "We were talking about a campaign," he said, "because some men think the last thing they said out loud is the last true thing in a room." "We were arguing," Myron said sharply, and the heat in her voice gave me oxygen. She stepped toward me and then stopped, like there was a tape line on the floor. I told him no. "No is a negotiation," Luck said, and that was his mistake. The room decided it didn't like him. "No," I said and took one step, careful and unshuckung, "is a complete sentence. I didn't touch him. I didn't need to. There are moments when the body chooses its height. I was taller than I have ever been." He left in the way a person leaves when they know they'll try to rewrite the scene later. The elevator took him down. The hallway sighed like a held breath released. Myron and I stood there with the ghost of him in our throats. She looked at me the way you look at a mirror you forgot had a person in it. "I didn't sleep with him," she said, and I believed her in the way you believe a bridge that holds your weight even as you hear it complain. "I don't want the version where we itemize," I said. "I want the version where we tell the truth without using numbers." She sat on the bed in the blue dress, hands folded like a girl and a CEO at once. "He made me feel like the room only mattered because I was in it," she said, voice flat with shame. "And then he made me feel like I owed him the room. I liked being chosen. I hated what I was being chosen for." "Me too," I said, before I could stop the confession from including me. She looked up, eyes quick and sharp. I told her about Iris in the scent lab, about late conversations and early coffees, about nothing that went as far as it could have and everything that went far enough to require nomming. She didn't flinch. She closed her eyes, breathed out, and when she opened them they were older and cleaner. "So," she said, "we're both still here." "We are," I said, "but I don't want to live in a room that smells like him." She stood and walked to me. We were close enough that even air had to find another route. "Help me wash it off," she whispered. We didn't make a movie out of it. We made something slower and less photogenic but more specific. Water running warm on wrists and the back of a neck. Fabric unzipping not as a reveal but as a relief. The gentle insistence of hands that know what they're asking is to be allowed back in. I cupped her face with my soapy palms, and she laughed into my fingers, and I kissed the laugh and the corners of the mouth where doubt had been camping. We stayed inside whatever line YouTube would draw with a felt-tip marker, and somehow made it feel more intimate than anything you're allowed to show. When her dress pooled at her feet, she stepped out of it like someone leaving a stage. After we sat on the floor in our towels, the bathroom bright and honest around us. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I don't want to lose us because we forgot how we started," she said. "How did we start?" I asked, wanting to hear it out loud. "You took my picture while we were both pretending not to be terrified," she said. "Then we stopped pretending long enough to laugh. So we laughed. We ordered takeout and ate in bed like teenagers who'd hidden the evidence, then texted the building manager to file a complaint with the kind of precision that makes problems grow legs and walk quickly. Murran wrote an email to the agency that used words like boundaries, protocol, and aufbedung. I sent Iris a message that said simply, "Thank you for teaching me to count breaths." She replied with a single line, "Some rooms are better with the window open." A week later, the rooftop campaign was hours without luck. The hotel wanted the city, not the man who thought he owned its reflection. I shot Myron in that blue dress at sunrise with no one touching her but light. Ira stood off to the side with a thermos and a grin that was friend and witness, not temptation. The scent in the air was clean and citrus, but the kind you get from a peeled fruit, not a bottle. On the way down, Myron pressed the elevator button and threaded her fingers through mine. "What do you think it smells like?" she asked. "When people decide to start over without moving out." "Laundry warm from the dryer," I said. "Toast, skin after the rain, also coffee because we'll need it." She lifted our joined hands and kissed the inside of my wrist where my pulse talks when it's excited. "Let's keep choosing," she said. We do. Some days we do it badly. Most days we do it like a practice we finally understand. Sometimes I catch a trace of amber in a lobby or an elevator and feel that old jolt. Then it passes, and the apartment smells like green tea and a lemon cut into imperfect quarters, and my wife in a dress that looks like it knows my name.